You didn't write this article, but it is on your site. I'm sure you know a lot about it. The article's titled Family Court Red Scare. Naples lawyer Reuben Doupé, hopefully I pronounced that right, pushes American kids toward communist China, backing deadbeat dad hiding in Hong Kong. This sounds like something that should be on ID or something like that. What's going on here?
Reuben Doupé of Naples, Florida. This man is scumbag of scumbags. The question becomes, at what point do the lawyers have to stop being mercenary dirtbags and realize that are children involved and that there is an American.
Hold on. I thought everyone, no matter how terrible, Charles Manson was zealously represented. How
That's
come?
Michael, that is a criminal court, right?
Mhm.
And that difference here, and they like to say it in New York, it's an old New York term, sir, you're on the wrong side of Center Street with that one. Because when you're talking about the best interests of the child, rights can take a back seat. The rights
Okay.
of the litigants take a back
So your argument is you do not have the right to a civil lawyer, and you do not, as a civil lawyer,
No,
have a duty to
no.
zealously represent your
Well,
client
the
if they're a
argument,
scummy.
I'm making the argument that the rights of the children have to be represented here. Okay, and the fact is, you have a lawyer that turns around. There's a point where a lawyer has to say ethically that my ethical rules kick in. And I think that we can agree that this is a constitution that we're expounding. It goes back to John Marshall, but it's an American constitution we're expounding. And the second that a lawyer's interests start to deviate from the American justice system or the Florida justice system and align themselves with a deadbeat offshore guy in a communist country that wants to bring American children
Hold
to a
on. Let
communist
me interrupt.
country.
Let me interrupt. Explain more. Why is this guy in China? Why is he trying to
You
get
got
his kids?
this guy named Namba, okay? And Namba is a finance guy, and he's a U.S. citizen, but he's one or two generations removed from being a Japanese citizen. So he was only in the U.S., I believe, because the family had come and had come from Japan, and so he's like the first generation. But he wasn't really. He was there mainly for the financial. And he's a currency trader, does exotic currency trading, mostly the Pacific Rim currencies like Japanese, Chinese, all these other places. And it knocks him off against the U.S. dollar and the pound and all this other stuff. And so that's the part of the world that he wants to be in. He wants to be in Asia where he's there, but he's a U.S. person. He's got U.S. children, a U.S. wife. The children are U.S. and he holds a U.S. passport. The fact of the matter is that, okay, well, the guy wants to be in Hong Kong. He has no, number one, no reason to want to bring those children to Hong Kong. But he's asserting in his lawsuit that he wants custody over these children, right? He wants, as a negotiating.
And the children currently live in the U.S. and he is using the Hague.
They're in the state of Florida. And
he's using the Hague Convention to do it.
Well, he's not even using the Hague Convention because China's not a signatory to the Hague Convention.
Oh.
They're not a full signatory. So what he's turning around and doing is he's in the U.S. courts and he's saying, I want to have custody of my kids. And he's got this lawyer, Doupé, coming in saying, oh, they should have custody. At the same time, Doupé is telling his client, don't pay child support, don't pay anything to the spouse, don't pay temporary support, don't do anything.
She's in a financial dire. Right.
Yeah,
she's in a financial district.
Here's the point. Even though he's a U.S. citizen, he's outside of the U.S. jurisdiction, so they can't compel the muscle on him in order to say, okay, if you don't pay, we're going to throw you in jail, right? If it was in Florida, if it was two people in Miami, they could throw one of them in jail if they didn't pay their child support obligations. This guy is not he's a deadbeat, but he's a millionaire deadbeat in the sense that he's got property all over the world, offshore accounts. He started in Singapore because they were in Singapore before, and he filed financial affidavits in Singapore. Doupé was an expert witness in Singapore, trying to say the Singapore courts had jurisdiction, not the Florida courts, but the Florida courts really did. And then now it's in Florida. He is the Florida lawyer. They filed financial affidavits in Singapore that do not correspond to the financial affidavits that they filed in Florida. And Doupé's on both cases. So he's a lawyer, and the numbers are all fucking funny. That's a legal term. Fucking funny. because and the other F word there is fraud. And so
Mhm.
you can't be a lawyer who basically suborns fraud, suborns, not supporting children who are residents of the state of Florida, and a mother who's a resident of the state of Florida. At a certain point, your ethical rules as an attorney and for the entire law firm have to kick in and say, you know what? Okay, enough's enough. You can't be doing this. Now, that's the
I
problem.
I don't understand. I understand we got a scumbag lawyer and his client is a huge scumbag. Why would the court entertain this petition or motion, or whatever this guy has filed? He's not paying child support. He doesn't live in the country. Why is the court even entertaining this petition?
Well, that's the point is that um, this is like a legal limbo type situation because the guy is not president in the United States. That's the
Mhm.
problem because the judge, a good judge, could call this guy in and tell him, look, buddy, you're going to do what I say. Here's the temporary order. Or you're going to go to jail. This judge has not compelled this guy to come to the United
No,
States
no.
yet.
Why don't they throw out the petition to try to get custody if he doesn't even live in the country or pay child support?
Well, that's the point. The point is that they're trying to resolve the case. And the issue this guy has is he's got United States hooks. He's got money in the United States. He's got more important than he's got financial licenses in the United States that could get attached, and he's got problems. So the next step, I think, would be the financial people have to be alerted to the Singapore and the Florida filings. But there's no hammer that this judge can bring in Florida. I feel bad for the Florida judge because he's got no hammer that he could bring to compel this guy unless he tells this guy to show up personally to the court. You can't do this by Zoom from halfway around the world, and then lays the law down on him. But I don't think this scumbag Doupé would want his client even to show up in Florida, and that begs the question: are you serving the interest of, as a member of the Florida bar and an officer of the court by doing this type of scumbag practice of law? And are you over the line at this point? I think this guy's way over the line in family court and doing it. And we see this. This is like the Hague Convention are horror stories, Mike. These Hague Convention cases. This is beyond a horror story case because the guy's camped out in Hong Kong, right?
Mhm.
He's a financial guy in Hong Kong, and they're enemies of America. So what happens? This guy's going to sit there, and you got the laws of the United States. You got the laws of China, which are not respected, and then the other place that potentially is the laws of Japan. And if this guy gets his hands on those kids and takes them either to China or Japan, the mother never sees her children again. You think about that. If the kids leave the
I
sanctuary, the United States citizen children leave the sanctuary of the state of Florida and the United States of America, these children will be kidnapped potentially to communism. And
I
that
do
is
not
and I think
understand.
that and I think that a guy like Reuben Doupé, as a lawyer, should first of all lose his license if something like that is even on the horizon. But number two, the family members would be very, very, well justified to turn this guy into alligator food. I really just that's what I think.
I I still don't understand why the judge doesn't throw out the petition to try to change custody and
I
say
don't
if
know
you
either. Might be the lawyers, or might be the judge. I just
right
don't know. It's a crazy
right
case. I'm going to be looking more into it, but my guys over there are looking into it, so we'll see.
all right.